it all stemmed from us like, screaming crew love at the top of our lungs at Phil's Wednesday because Take Care was like the best in first and second year. So what up, guys? How are we doing?
Gee. Les, how are you?
What's going on? Good to see you guys, man. I feel like I haven't seen some of you guys in like a dog's age. Obviously, like COVID kind of like puts the brakes on that, but it's good that everyone looks good. Everyone's looking clean. I love it.
Oh, but I got the hat on for a reason. Can't show the hair. Barber's busy.
My man's OVO down. I'm surprised you don't have the Larry O'Brien trophy next to you, to be honest, brother.
Oh no, that thing's locked up, man.
So what I want to do here is I just want us to quickly, for you guys to just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about, where you're from, maybe where you're living now, what you graduated from with Laurier, and kind of what your elevator pitch of yourself is right now in a snapshot. So just to try and keep things as structured as possible, we'll go with Josh, Sohail, Zack, and then TOBi. We'll kind of go in that order. So Josh, you want to kick us off? Maybe a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Josh. Thank you to TOBi, Sohail, Zack, Laurier Alumni, Laurier Student Union for helping us set this up. So to tell you guys a little bit about myself, co-founder and CEO of Toronto Sports Performance. We're a sports medicine clinic in Liberty Village. Also the co-founder of District, the organization, the brand that helped set this up. So shout out to the District team for locking in and making this happen. Just super fortunate to be around Zack, Sohail, and TOBi it's crazy to think back, like last night and Scotty as well, like to think back about first, second year university and to really see how far we've grown and all the things that we're doing. So I just really want to spend the time and picking their brains and learning from them as much as the rest of the crowd. So really excited.
Awesome. Sweet. Sohail?
What's up, guys? Sohail. First off, thanks to Josh and the district team for setting this all up. It's really cool to obviously do this. Like back when I was younger, I wish there was something like this for me as well. So, but like it's kind of cool to be back with all the guys. I remember I was kind of like reminiscing about playing ball at the Laurier gym with like Zack and all the guys, and it was kind of crazy. And like even Josh, I've known Josh since like the Mississauga days back when he was at Joan of Arc. So kind of being back with everybody now and seeing everyone's like developed and grown and to see where they are in their careers now, it's really cool. And I'm excited to hear their stories as well. Like my story is what it is, but like I'm to see what Zack has done, see where TOBi's career has gone as well. It's like I'm more excited to hear about them, if anything. So hopefully it's good for everybody.
That's great. Awesome. Good to hear from you. Zack?
Awesome. Well, first of all, I'm really honored to be on this panel. I've missed you guys dearly. Thank you to District and for Josh for putting this together and coming up with this incredible idea. My name is Zack, and I'm originally from, I guess I moved all over the GTA from Sauga to North York to Richmond Hill to Aurora. And ever since Laurier, ended up working at Shopify for a couple of years out in Waterloo, stuck in a little bit in the KW region. And then about 2.5, 3 years ago, moved out to LA to start my own management company working with Yes Theory, who are a group of content creators that create videos all around the premise that the best things in life are outside of your comfort zone. And likewise, like the rest of you guys, have been reminiscing over the past few days of open runs at the Laurier courts and rap battles between TOBi and Scotty and all the great days. So I think it's incredible to think about how it feels kind of like yesterday, but at the same time feels like forever ago, and time goes by very quickly. I remember people telling me that when I was in university, but I'm glad to be able to kind of spread that message forward and give some advice where it could be helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I think you embody the art of the pivot more than potentially anyone. Real shit. Like, you know what I mean? So that's great. TOBi.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is TOBi. I'm from Nigeria, grew up in Toronto, Brampton, and I went to Laurier. I did a BA in biology and psychology. You know, like what Zack said, you know, I have fond memories with all these guys on on the panel today. You know what I mean? You know, some of them were more competitive on the ball court. You know, some were in the rap arena. You know, but it's all love, man, and it's so good to see everybody in 2020. You know, we have a pandemic going on, but we're still shining. We're still doing the best we can. So just got to be grateful. Yeah, and I'm a recording artist. I'm a rapper, singer, songwriter, performer. This is what I've loved to do since I was a kid, and I'm glad that I can do it now as my job, as my profession. So much love. Thanks for having me today.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so those are all of our panelists. Great to have you guys. I want to jump right into it. I want to talk about take it back to before Laurier days, so grade 12, or if you did a Vic lap, or I want to know, like, when you're in high school, what did you think your career was going to be, or why did you pick Laurier? I really find it interesting to tap into the mind of someone who's about to make that next step into post-secondary, or maybe go into the trades or start a business, or what was your mindset going into that post-grad scenario? What did you think you were going to be when you were in grade 12? I guess everyone can kind of if you have something, maybe just come in and then wait for someone else to go in. We can kind of do it that way if we want. Someone has an idea. Josh, you want to set it off with yours?
Yeah.
Go first.
Yeah, we could go in that order again. But yeah, to be honest with you guys, picking universities for me was based on like where I could play basketball at that time, like how I could continue my career, then really hurt my knee. So I had to pivot. That's where the first pivot started for me. So my mom is my superhero. I don't know if she's here. She was an accountant at that time for a good part of our lives. She kind of raised us 4 kids by herself. So I always looked at her like, how can I be her? Like she had this ridiculous amount of empathy, love. Never like we grew up with nothing, and she always was so positive. Always showed love to everyone around us. So I always try to, for me, after like the hoop dreams were over, I just try to see that. And economics was one of my favorite classes in high school. So I was like, how can I be an accountant and like really dabble in economics? Did my research. Laurier had one of the best business and economics schools that was close by, while I could also live away from home. So it kind of fit the best of both. It fit the like criteria for everything I was looking for. Then it's so many people were coming out of my area. Sohail was one to go to Laurier. So it made going away feel like home. So that would be, I guess, like the story of how I came to Laurier.
Nice, yeah. Zack, if you want to take it, or sorry, Sohail, we'll go in the order. So if Sohail, you want to go next?
Yeah, and similar to Josh, a lot of my decisions were kind of based, I guess, originally on sports. Or for me, it was volleyball. But obviously, the year we all came in is the year the school did some budget cuts, and the volleyball team was one that got folded. But another part of that for me was family as well. My mom was always pushing me towards science. So I did my research as well. And for me, doing a bio and psych, I knew if I wanted to continue my research, what I wanted to do was Alzheimer's research, I have to do post-secondary, right? So other factors came into play. One big thing for me was the city itself. It gave me the ability to leave home. And one thing I appreciate a lot of people that I talk to now is leaving home for school and experiencing what it's like to live on your own, getting a job, all that kind of stuff, right? Because once you're at home, you're kind of sheltered, right? So I want to experience the whole being on my own kind of feel. So Laurier I enjoyed because the city of Waterloo is very student-based. Everyone's there for that reason, right? So, and the campus was nice and small, it was easier to get around to, where if you look at other campuses like, let's say, UFT or York, it takes like 30 minutes to get to some of your classes, right? So, and for me, it came out to all those factors, but I remember when I came to visit the school, like the minute I got there, it was kind of just like, that sounds cliche, but it kind of felt right, you know? You show up there, you're like, okay, I can see myself going to school for 4 years. I can enjoy the vibe. And that's one thing I based a lot on was like the vibe I got when I came to visit. So no regrets at all. It's like the decision I made, even though the sports kind of ended very abruptly for me, I had no regrets about it because the end of the day, I'm there for education, right? And I got my education and it helped me get to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay, cool. Zach?
Yeah. In high school, I guess it was very different for me. Going into my last year of high school, had a conversation with my mom, and she was like, "Hey, if you work really hard, maybe you can go to like a good college or something like that." When you're first year after high school, my marks were terrible, so I didn't really know what I was gonna do. And I was like, "Mom, what are you talking about? I'm gonna pull it together. I'm gonna go to university." And she's like, "All right, show me." So I did, because I always kind of knew I had it in the tank, and I was just kind of waiting until it actually mattered. As I think many of us look back on high school and remember those conversations of like, it doesn't matter right now, so who cares? And pick Laurier, same as Sohail, was like, what's far enough from North York where I won't have to live at home, or that's not even going to be an option. I knew I wanted to move out. And Laurier was just close enough that I could make the drive when I needed to see my mom, but just far enough that I could live on campus. And to be honest, one of the main reasons it stuck out to me with some of the other schools that I got accepted into was the diversity. Like, it's always been very important to me to go to was important to me to go to a university that I felt was like culturally diverse. And I didn't see that in a couple of the other schools that had accepted me. And I felt like that was always very important for me. So that was a main reason. Plus, like, I felt like it being smaller and it being a campus that was like, you could walk across in 10, 15 minutes, to me felt like it would always feel like similar to high school, where you like walk around and you see your friends constantly, and that would just provide this like really good culture and friend circle, which it ended up being exactly that. And then I took business because, I dropped out of my sciences after my 10th grade because I took double gym in grade 11 because I could. I just always knew business was going to be the thing for me because I was passionate about entrepreneurship. So Laurier had a good business program. So that was kind of what led me to Laurier.
Zach, really, really quickly, I think it's really interesting and really key to note. As I described you as a serial entrepreneur, at what point in life did you feel that you had a knack for entrepreneurship or wanted to start your own thing? Or like, when would that like fire kick in? Because I think for people listening, I think it's a small industry, but it's a big industry. I think like the more as the years go on, how lucrative it looks and how desirable of a career it comes. But I find it interesting when that started in you.
Yeah, good question. I've always been really ambitious. Like, I was 5'7" white Canadian who thought I was going to go to the NBA until I was like 16. Like, that's late, dude. And so I like always had these big dreams and held on to them. And entrepreneurship struck me as this thing that had no ceiling. And the thought of having no ceiling was very exciting. And it first sparked within me when I was in about grade 6 or 7.
Wow.
I remember
Okay.
I would go to Costco with my mom, and I would convince her to buy boxes of chocolate bars in bulk. And I just remember realizing that like it was 100% margin if I could just get her to like not take that out of me paying for it, and I could just go and resell those bars to kids in school. Because I had a lot of like in grade 6, the school I went to had a lot of kids who were the kids of immigrants, and so their parents were giving them these like weird Persian or Middle Eastern or Indian dishes that they didn't like, and they always wanted to like fit in with kids who had normal Lunchables and stuff. And so I would sell it to them because I was like, dude, you guys are gonna buy O. Henry's and stuff from me all day. Because I related to that because my mom would send me to school with like Persian ass meals. So that was kind of the first way I was like, oh, I have a knack for this, and I have the ability to like portray this value to people and also sell them on like why this is a good idea.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, very interesting because I feel like there's a lot of like young people I talk to now. They always say they're into entrepreneurship or want to own their own business. So I find it interesting, like when that started for you. TOBi, what about you? What was that grade 12 mentality? What were you thinking? Where was your head at?
Yo, honestly, I just wanted to get out of Brampton, man. That was my mission, bro. I'm like, I'm out of here. So it was either Laurier, Guelph, or Ottawa, and I wasn't Ottawa. I didn't get into the program I wanted, so they had me in like biopharmaceutical. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. But the real reason why I did choose Laurier though was because when I went to visit for the orientation, first of all, I saw how compact the campus was. And I was like, okay, boom, I can get from here to here. I can get from this class to this class in 10 minutes. Perfect. You know, like professors will actually know my name. You know what I mean? Perfect. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel like I was a number or just you know, yeah, just like a number in the classroom. So those were some of the factors that went into play when I chose it. Also the leadership opportunities. You know, I was told, you know, every student that comes here has the chance to be, you know, a leader in their own right during the undergraduate career. So those were the main points for me, definitely.
Yeah, nice. And a lot of things that you guys have said, I think ipso facto, you guys have kind of touched on the same points. At Laurier, once you were there, it's shaped the person that you've become today, even if you're not doing exactly what potentially you graduated from. So I'd like to kind of know, I find it interesting anytime I talk to a Laurier grad, or I actually got a call from Laurier's call center to asking alumni to donate, which is where I used to work there. And I'm just so interested. She's in the caller was in third year, and she was in English, and she didn't know what she was doing. But after she graduated, she wasn't sure. She was volunteering. I find it interesting people's Laurier story, because I think most people who go to Laurier end up really padding that resume. So kind of walk us through basically in a nutshell, your Laurier experience. Like what did, like, for me, for example, I went to Laurier for global studies and then immediately changed to communications. And how did it ebb and flow for you? What did you get involved with? What things did you try and not like? Let's start with Josh.
Yeah, so my Laurier journey, similarly, I guess that's why I revolved around to Sohail so much. Sohail might be one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. This guy worked every single hour of the day, it seemed like. So my first 2 years, since I couldn't afford to really go live, like I committed to living away, I I didn't really think about the financial implications at that point. I didn't realize how expensive it would be. I didn't realize OSAP wouldn't be giving me that much. I had to work 2 jobs. So my first and second year, I was going back and forth to Mississauga. I worked at Wild Wings, Sears, almost a lot of just different weird jobs throughout the time to just make it work and just to pay off the bills and make sure I was comfortable. And from there, school, I'll be honest with you, similarly to Zack, until like I really got that aha moment in third, fourth year, I took it lightly. A lot of it, I would say, was just chilling with the homies, Sohail, Zack, TOBi, Scotty, all the roommates here. I don't know if Mickey's here, Cam. That really shaped who I was. Like the untraditional networking route. Like TOBi, my first experience ever with him, the friendliest dude. Like I don't even know where, but we just ended up talking and we just ended up walking down University Street from campus. And then from there, we just kept like keeping in touch. Whenever we would see each other on campus, we would just say what up. So Zack, Sohail, and Scotty, like I gave them buckets on the basketball court. So that they found out about me.
Facts.
Yeah, but from there, I would say my university, like not until third, fourth year was I really able to like work with Sohail. And I was like a ref for intramurals. I was able to like play different intramural sports where I could meet people and then almost like interact with people in a more untraditional setting, not like in classrooms and whatnot. So I felt like people's guards were down. Also, our me and Sohail and our other roommates' house at that time, it was like a cottage. We had a 7-person house, so we would like every album that came out, we had a listening party. I don't know, is my mom here? We had we just had a bunch of things going on. Had people parties and whatnot, and that's how I really got to build the relationships with people. Even like I would say like that experience shaped who I am today. Like really being able to network, connect with people in a real authentic way, and not in a way where it's like very transactional. So yeah, my third and fourth year, not to really ramble, I took school seriously at that time. Like I really had to lock in. And it always at the back of my head, I was like, how do I get my mom to retire? Like those years, it started to kick in. I was like, I got to go overdrive, similar to Zack's story. Like, I was just like, I got to prove, like, I got to really, really tap in. So third, fourth year, my marks were way better than my first, second year. I did economics, so it was tough, as Zack could allude to. Had a thesis class, had like different classes that really shaped how I think as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, like game theory, behavioral economics, finance, like just such a wide array of business classes that really molded me into a critical thinker. Also, being super upfront, I did a lot of my assignments last minute. So I became like really good at being efficient with my time, but also like really good at handling pressure. Well, like during crunch time, whenever I needed to get an assignment, it was never late. And just like do the all-nighters and all that. So a long Laurier story short, that was kind of what it was like for me.
Gotcha. Sohail, what about you? You were Mr. Athletics. I know you had your hands in a lot of different stuff and graduated with some pretty serious degrees. So like where did you find that balance, and what was your ebbs and flows throughout your years there?
For me, coming into first year was a little tough because I wasn't on residence. I was actually living off campus. So I was technically a locust student. So making those friends off the jump were pretty tough for me because I wasn't on like the resident floors where everyone's having like these floor parties or stuff like that, right? Like I was kind of island by myself, but I was fortunate that Laurier had the locust program for us where it would help connect us. But for me, similar to Josh, in like my first year, I would go back to Mississauga a lot because I worked at Wendy's. I know, so hey, but like it paid the bills, right? So, and like that first year, I was pretty much focused just on like just school and work. And I didn't do much. I go to the gym and like play ball and stuff. But it was more towards like my second year. I realized that like, okay, if I want to get an education, it's coming out of my own pocket, right? Like my parents said like, hey, if you want to go to school, like, and you want to leave the house, like you're on your own kind of thing, right? So that was kind of like my moment saying like, okay, I got to start taking this really seriously. And that's when I really started like hunkering down, really starting to work, right? I was very fortunate enough to first get a job at Wilson Turret, shout out to JS. He took care of me a lot, right? He understood. It's like, he saw me, he's like, I always saw him like, hey, whenever you want me to work, I'll work, right? So he would call me at like 4 p.m. saying like, hey, you want to come work at 5:30? All right, no problem, done deal, right? And like for me, I kind of like built that relationship with him as like a person who always can depend on, right? So I would always like work those shifts whenever he needed me, whether it be like to 3 a.m. working after a Saturday night turret event or being the next morning at the restaurant working in the kitchen, right? But I always made sure to pay attention to school as well because I understood I'm there first things first education and I'm working this hard in order to pay for that school, right? Because when it was all said and done, that was like 40 grand in my own pocket, right? That could have been investments I could do something else with, right? So between like the lab hours and stuff, like second year was like a little tricky, but luckily at that point, I was able to network a lot better. And that's kind of when I reconnected with Josh was in the second year because he actually became my roommate in second year. And like, that's where I met everybody else with like Mickey and Cam and those guys. And I started opening up my network to like more people at the gym, right? And then that's when I kind of really started like refereeing. And I'm sure a lot of people, if there's alumni on this right now, is like they would always see me at the gym, whether it was at the front desk or refereeing.
The front desk at the AC, yep.
You guys will always see my face. So then like it was at that point where I guess you can say like the grind like really started for me, like the aha moment, right? Okay, saying like I know who I am, right? I'm a person who grinds and gets things done, right? Like I was never a big party person. Like for me, I was all about getting the grades and getting the money. That's all I was about, right? So then when I came to third and fourth year, it became like muscle memory at that point, right? I knew what my classes were and all that kind of stuff, but it was roughly around there where I kind of realized like, hey, I don't really want to do science no more because a lot of my joy I got was when I was in the sports setting. And one thing I always told my mom, because Zack, you're Persian as well, you get this, like Persian moms, man, when they tell you to do something, it's like they have their heart set on it, right? So my mom, for me, she was like, I want you in sciences. I'm like, all right, bet, no problem, cool, I'll do that. And it was kind of towards there, I'm just like, I don't want to do this no more. You lose passion, right? And that's one thing you notice a lot in university is like, you go into a program, like let's say you go into like BBA or something like that, and then you get to a point where you just kind of get tired of learning about it or being forced to learn about it, right? So I kind of reached that breaking point in my third year. I'm just like, it's not free no more. And then I kind of got lucky in a sense that Ontario Volleyball, who does like all the provincial rep volleyball and stuff, does their tournaments over in Waterloo. I saw us play in those. So I went to visit one day, and then lo and behold, they're like, hey, come do like contract jobs for us. And it was there where I'm just like, okay, there could be a job for me in sports, and it's a possibility. And like, how can I start doing that? So that I started talking to people and saying like, hey, how can I possibly get to where you are, right? Networking with people outside of Laurier in the sports world. And then that's kind of where the story rolls for me. Mark Baxter, he used to go to Laurier as well, and he worked at the gym.
Big up, Mark.
Yeah, big up Mark, man. He came back to visit one in my fourth year, and he told me he was at George Brown. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What are you doing over there? And he mentioned the sports and event program. And they kind of like broke it down for me, and he mentioned MLSC and like the Raptors. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So he hooked it up in the sense like he got me a part-time job at MLSC. And to me, that was the biggest thing I could ever have, right? The most important thing in anywhere is a foot in the door. Once you have a foot in the door, you can prove yourself. And that's kind of what I did at the start of Laurier. JS gave me a chance at Wilson Turret, foot in the door, prove myself. At athletics, they gave me a chance, foot in the door, and I grew my portfolio when I was there, right? So that's always my mentality, is like get the foot in the door and then prove your worth. Prove who you are and prove what you can do, right? So by the time I got to my fourth year, it's like, I knew what I want to do. I told my mom, just like, Mom, I'm going to work in sports. And she's like, I don't believe it, but prove it to me. And then lo and behold, is the day I got the job with the Raptors, the first thing I did was actually call my mom saying like, hey, guess what? And then she's like, what? I'm like, I told you I'm going to prove you wrong. And then from there, it was like, it's kind of crazy how that happened. It's like, it felt good, you know. It was like, she was proud as well, because like obviously she had her doubts, but to know that the success happened and like the work that went behind it, the amount of like holidays I would miss back in Mississauga because I would stay at Waterloo to work at the gyms to make the money to pay for school, like it all worked out for me. So like that's kind of how Laurier shaped me. It helped build my values as a student and as an employee, and like who I kind of am as a grinder right now.
Yo, it's so funny. I remember so vividly, like packing my bags to go to Thanksgiving. I forget what year it was in. I think it might have been maybe fourth. And I was packing my bags, and the go bus stop was right on the other side of the AC. So I cut through, and I remember it was like, there was the last bus out to go to square one. Like no one was on campus. And I was like, I felt like I was the last one there. I walked past, I look in the AC, you're still at the front desk. And I'm like, okay, so I guess he's not seeing his family. I guess he's like operating the front desk, I guess, on Thanksgiving.
Crazy, even in fourth year, it was St. Patrick's Day, and everyone knows St. Patrick's at Laurier, what that's like, right? So this is back when I was like the hot desk coordinator, and obviously for me, it's I'm not a big drinker, so I'm not saying okay, whatever. So I remember Dylan Campbell, who also you guys remember as like was in his combine training at the time. He's like, I'm not gonna do anything either. So I'm like, you know what? Everyone kind of took like the day off kind of thing, and me and him worked the desk all from open to close essentially, right?
Wow.
So it's like I have no problem with that kind of stuff. It's like people have experience their lives different than I do, right? I have no problem working those long hours in order to make other people kind of happy, right? Because I know people actually do want to take those breaks and enjoy those times off, right? Where for me, it's like I get pleasure in like kind of working hard and like earning my stripes, right?
Gotcha. Right on. Yeah. Just quickly before we move on to TOBi, I just want to let you guys know, all of our panelists, there's a conversation happening with all of our attendees in the webinar chat. All you need to do is just go to all panelists and attendees, and we can like type in there and chat. I know some people have comments and are trying to join the conversation as well. So, and anyone listening, if you guys have like specific questions or things you want to comment, definitely hit it up in the webinar chat for sure. Okay, TOBi, I want to throw it to you next and talk about your Laurier journey. And I think yours is really interesting because, you know, everyone on this call, all the panelists had their hands in different buckets at Laurier. Academics, you know, sports for Sohail, right? But, oh, sorry, we got to throw it to Zack next, sorry. But we'll do TOBi, then Zack, because I'm already on TOBi. But TOBi also had the music component in there too, right? So how did you balance music, your studies, also being a Don? Walk us through that 4 or 5 years of that journey and how you balanced everything there.
All right, for sure. I'm a condense it for you really quick. The first 2 years, I did not balance it at all. It was terrible. You know, I think I almost redid my entire second year. That's how bad it was. I had to, you know, I had to upgrade some of the marks because I was literally spending most of my time in my apartment. I lived in Lux with my roommates, and I was just spending that time recording. You know, I had my MacBook. I was recording music. I wasn't going to lectures. You know what I'm saying? It was terrible, man. But the balance piece actually came once I got more involved in school, like icebreakers, you know, student union, Dawn Life. Once I got more involved in that, in the school space, it's almost like I had more of a purpose, and I was more driven to get stuff done, just to be great at what I was doing. So that definitely helped. And music, I loved it so much that it didn't even matter. It didn't even really matter what else I was doing. I knew every day I was going to record and I was going to make some music in my space. So getting involved in school, getting involved in Dawn Life, Student Union, it just added to my purpose as a student, my purpose as a leader in the community, getting involved in the diversity and equity office, call center ambassadors with you, Scott. You know, I had my hand in a lot of things. I worked at the turret. I mean, sorry, not the turret, the terrace. Yeah, it was
Market. I remember.
Yeah, Union Market, you know, and I think the getting involved piece and being good at multiple things, it really helped me find my purpose. And my purpose was to serve, and my purpose was to create as well. So I think that definitely helped me down the stretch. But the first 2 years, man.
Yeah.
I throw those years in the trash.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Like I was in a little bit of in the same boat on that one for sure. Okay, now Zach, sorry I jumped TOBi ahead of you, but Zack, your story is interesting. Your journey is as storied as anyone's, right? Like you tried. How many things did you try? Like I remember it was like something new every couple months, every semester something was new, and you were like so passionate about it. And I really think it's important. I really want, if you can just touch on it quickly. I was thinking about this all day today. If you can touch on the quickly on the laptop. I call it the laptop hustle, because that was like the ultimate pivot. And I think me looking at you from afar, that was kind of like the first time I saw you really, I'm like, oh, this guy's like going to be a quote unquote entrepreneur. So like maybe walk us through your journey and maybe touch on that a little bit as well. I think that's important for people to hear.
For sure. So my mindset when I first got into university was like very money oriented. And I thought that was the most important thing for me. And I had this idea that I wanted to wear a suit and be an investment banker and take care of my mom and put all this money home. And I worked really hard in my first year to get really good grades and then to get a job in the summer. And I ended up getting a job in the summer at Sun Life Financial, which I'm sure a lot of you guys know.
Yeah.
And I hated it. And I realized I didn't enjoy my first year. So I made a very conscious decision afterwards that I was going to do the bare minimum to get by in school for my second, third, and fourth year, as long as it ended up with me getting that degree. And I realized what I wanted to do instead. Working at Sun Life, it didn't show me what I wanted to do, but it definitely showed me what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to work in a cubicle. I didn't want to be someone who stayed at one company for their life and put some money away for retirement. That wasn't who I personally wanted to be. So I said, okay, how do I just get by in school and then spend my time here taking advantage of the opportunity around me and trying my hand at building skills? And I knew I wanted to be something in business and entrepreneur. So I said, okay, let me start a business by myself. So the first thing I did was I started a tutoring company in my second year for first year business students. And a really quick story there, I ended up booking out a classroom. I forget, it was in the TOBi, I want to say. If that was the name of the building. But I ended up booking the classroom. I went to SOS tutors, which I'm sure SOS is still a thing at Laurier. And I went to the SOS tutors and said like, hey, how much do you guys get paid to teach these classes? And they said, we don't get paid, we're volunteers. And I was like, you guys are doing this for free? I was like, all right, I'll give you guys $60 an hour if you do this. And I ended up making a tutoring company called Easy A. I made little business cards. I stood outside the first year business classes and handed them out being like, yo, we're going to do a crash course before the midterm and before the exam. And we did it in a room. Everyone came in, they paid $10, $20. And I gave $60 of it to the teachers or the tutors. And then I kept the rest for myself. And after that first class, I got called into the office of the Dean of Students. And he sat me down and he goes, hey, I heard you were charging admission for people to enter a Laurier classroom. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, you can't do that. You can't charge kids to get into a Laurier classroom. I was like, what are you talking about? SOS does it. And he goes, yeah, SOS does it, but they're a club and they give all the money away to charity. And I was like, okay, well, what if I give like a portion of money away to charity? Like, I'm happy to do that. And he goes, no. What I'm telling you to do. And he goes, I actually had this conversation with the founder of SOS as well, who's a Laurier student. But he goes, what I'm telling you to do is to turn your business into a club. We'll fund you. So we'll give you the money in order to like pay, like get marketing materials and do all this and that. But you won't be a for-profit organization. You'll have to give it all away. But like, we'll fund you enough to like be able to create your marketing assets and stuff. And I like, I'm not going to really sugarcoat or hide anything. I looked at him and I said, sir, we're not in club school. I'm in business school. Like, I'm not here to like not learn how to run a business. I want to learn learn how to run a business. If I get out of here, I'm never going to have an organization just fund me and let me have the funding do all this. Like, I want to learn what the real way is. So I told him, listen, I'm going to do it off campus and I'm going to do it somewhere where you can't stop me. So I did it in the church across the street from the cafeteria. And I don't know if that church is still there. They might have knocked it down when they built the new business school, but I went to the church and I said, hey, sir, do you guys have any rooms in your basement? And he said, we do. And I said, can I rent them from you and I'll pay you? And he said, we can't ask for payment, but if we can take donations. And I said, all right, you guys will make 20% off everything I make. And so for the next year, I ran the classes there and learned a shit ton that way. In my fourth year, I ended up tutoring raised a guide dog. That was one of the best experiences of my entire university. Emmett, which I'm sure many of you guys remember. I went to probably 15 classes in my last year of university in total throughout the entire year because I just spent all my time raising this dog, which in hindsight taught me so much more than maybe some of those classes might have about responsibility and about taking care of, something that needs your attention all the time. The laptop project was during one of the summers when I was working at Sun Life. I was trying to take a computer science course online. The course is still available. It's called CS50. It's the introductory computer science course at Harvard, and it's available for free for everyone online. I was taking this course so that I could learn enough about computer science so that when I talked to my engineer and computer science friends, I didn't sound like an idiot. While I was taking it, my laptop died and I didn't have no money to get a new laptop. So I came up with this idea that I was going to get a laptop, but I was going to sell the space on the front of my laptop as real estate to brands around the KW area to put their logos in order for it to be an advertisement and a billboard. And I actually went to Scotty and I said, hey, Scotty, I'm going to do this thing. If it works, will you write about it in the Cord? Well, because you were writing at the Cord and you're like, of course. Went to a couple of different magazines or locally and asked them the same thing. And they all said yes. And then kind of played this game of like chicken and the egg. Told one side I had all the writers and told the writers I had all the restaurants and the brands, and was able to get, I think, $1,600 across like 7-8 different brands, from Hoffico property management to Quick Sandwiches, shout out Quick Sandwiches, and was able to get that laptop. And I still have it today. I still use it as like my home laptop. So yeah, those are my stories of university.
Yeah, wild. Yeah, that's like, I remember that so vividly. I remember, and it was a really, I'd like to find the picture because we brought the photo team from the Cord to come like take pictures of you with the laptop. And I remember it was the picture was you outside with the laptop, just like looking like that. It was great. Okay, so now that we kind of established the panelists, who they are, their journey, I kind of want to get into how we're able to help all of the people that are on the call right now and everyone listening and everyone who will listen to this, because this is being recorded. So I'm sure it'll get blasted off. So what I'm hearing from each of you is that the jobs you have now, there's no real like roadmap, let's say. I think it's important to note that, right? Like a lot of people think, and it can be true, is like if you're in science, you become a scientist. If you're in accounting, you become an accountant. If you're, in communications, you go into PR. Like it's a very rudimentary, follow the steps, paint by numbers formula. But for you guys who are in these econs and the sciences, but your jobs now are like, I would like to say, very cool jobs and potentially like the jobs of your dreams, right? And there's no exact roadmap to that. So I want to know how you use Laurier's framework to put you into those dream jobs, even if it didn't have that much of a roadmap. You know what I mean? Like there was, Josh, was there a sports performance, business ownership type of course that you took, or was it more from experiences? Like how did you get to the place you're at, and how did you use Laurier as that jump off, that springboard?
To kind of really go back to like my story earlier, it really went down to like building authentic relationships. My co-founder, who is like the head practitioner here, a chiropractor, graduated in New York, was my roommate and Sohel's roommate, Dr. George McHale. So I think something I really preach to a lot of the kids that reach out to me, you can't really change your software. That's what's like that's your foundation. Hardware, like what degrees you have, like the skills, the jobs you have, that could always change. But like your foundation, it's all that you have. So my foundation, like at such a young age, was like get my mom to retire. Like I grew up in like points of my life in a really low income neighborhood, a lot of violence, all of that. So it was like, it taught me a lot of like resilience, a lot of how to be street smart as well. So it was like how to really value my energy, how to protect my energy, but also how to just connect with anyone like that I saw, like I wasn't standoffish. I would just, like my story with TOBi and the rest of these guys, like as long as we vibed out, there was like a small, I would say, crew of people that like listen to hip hop, R&B, like went to Phil's Wednesdays. Like we would see each other in the same spots. So it like, at a certain point, we just all kind of like built like a community of our own. So I think Laurier's framework really, like you guys alluded, like all of you guys alluded to, since it's a smaller school, it really valued the sense of community. So I kind of like, similar with you guys, like I resonated with you guys. I got to know you guys more and more over 4 years. So I think the biggest thing I could say that I got from Laurier, I'll be honest with you guys, the hardware, the diploma, me getting the economics degree, becoming a fund accountant at CF, like I'm not doing that right now. Like it didn't really do anything for who I was today, but it helped me sharpen like my ability to connect, my ability to like just work under pressure, my ability, like Zack was saying when he raised the guide dog, like living by yourself, having so much stimulation around you, everyone else is living by themselves, like the ability to balance your time. And like, I guess a strength of mine is I knew I was going to make mistakes, so I was never hard on myself. So I was like if I missed a midterm and I needed to go to the doctor's clinic, please don't try this at home. Like I was never really hard on myself. I was just like, I got to be better. I got to hold myself accountable. I can't let this happen again. So I think it just really sharpened the software. But in terms of like the overall Laurier experience, I think it's the people I met. It's you guys. So I appreciate you guys and really lucky to have met you.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Likewise. And Sohail, I think that people like, I sing your praises wherever I go, just because I think that you really pivoted the hardest into what I think a lot of people would define as their dream job, right? Running and contributing to Raptors social media is a dream job for anyone who's a fan of sports. It's one of the biggest things you can do. How did you, what Laurier lessons kind of like helped get you there, and kind of walk me through the art of that pivot? Because on paper you got science degrees, right? And then here you are doing this not necessarily scientific work, which you graduated with, but you've been able to kind of pivot it into something that's so exciting. Maybe you can speak about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say I didn't really take much education into what I'm doing now, but to kind of echo what Josh said, it's honestly the network. I remember like being back at like at the crib with like the 7 roommates. We would be watching ball all the time, be talking about music, movies, art, and a lot of what I do right now, the inspiration I get and the content that I create comes from those talks originally. That's kind of what built my foundation of what inspires me to things I want to create today, right? I know a lot of times when I'm trying to think of captions or copy for certain posts, I relate back to music because I remember those listening parties Josh mentioned earlier when Cole would drop an album, when Drake would drop an album, we all, doesn't matter if it was that midnight drop, we're all standing up together and we're listening, right? And you kind of like deconstruct those things. So just those networking that we did together and like those memories help kind of shape it. And another thing, and Josh said earlier, was the pressure. For me, knowing that the only way for me to survive is to work and to focus kind of help put that pressure on me, because a lot of what I do right now is pressure built. So like the example is like game 6 of the NBA finals, when things are going down, it's like, if I crack under pressure, millions of people are going to see that, right? But I kind of thought back to back when I was in school and like I'm wondering how am I going to pay rent, or how am I going to pay tuition, or how am I going to afford this book? I'll think about like those pressure moments where it's like, you know what, if things happen, it's okay. But I was under a lot more pressure when I was younger just to get my education. So a lot of the lessons I learned was to how to handle those pressures. And that's what helped Laurier teach me was, okay, you have those late shifts at the turret on Saturday and then an early shift Sunday at the gym, right? The pressures of like knowing that you have responsibilities to not only yourself, but the people who trust you with those responsibilities kind of help really shape me. So yes, education is important, but the things I took away the most from Laurier were the networking experiences and the pressure moments that helped guide me to where I am today.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Because I know I can just only imagine, Zach, this kind of segues perfect to you. I think there's so many people who like look at you guys and think that like they're doing my dream job, right? I can only imagine how many students at Laurier right now are in accounting, they're in econ, they're in science. Maybe because there was some family pressure there, maybe because they're not necessarily sure what they want to do and they were good at science, good at math, but their dream is to move to LA and manage like one of the biggest YouTube creation channels on YouTube, right? Like I'm really interested in again, there's no YouTube management course at Laurier, right? Like there's no Raptors social media management course at Laurier. So Zach, maybe you can speak to some of those soft skills that Laurier taught you and how you were able to pivot a couple times after graduation into the job you have now.
For sure. For me, it was about, I think similarly, and I think this will be kind of a reoccurring theme. It was like really I don't think any of us, we learned any of the skills in class. I think what Laurier was able to provide is a really good community of people that you can meet. And then also the freedom in order to be able to take the initiative and have the resources around you to be able to make things happen if you take that first step. So, Laurier provided me with the ability to, if I wanted to, start my own business, I could do that. And people were open to it. And, although the Dean of Students didn't necessarily make it easier for me, there's things around in the KW area. And KW itself was a big part of it too, being it a place where it was tech capital of Canada, is tech capital of Canada. There was just so much around it being a really good base for a person to say they were an entrepreneur. Whereas I imagine if I was in another city, that being something I was going around prancing, telling people wouldn't have been as widely accepted or supported. So I think that was extremely important. And that was, I think, the thing that gave me the comfort in being able to have those conversations. I remember the other thing for me that was just really important with school was more just like family based. That for me, going to university was a really big thing that I thought I was the first person in my family to go to university. When I moved to Canada from Iran, we didn't have immigration status. We were refugees. So my sister never got a chance to go to university because we can never get government funding. So I always saw that as a really, really big chance. And so for me, it was, I have 4 years here. I'm going to be in the hole tens of thousands of dollars that I got to pay back to OSAP. If I don't squeeze this orange for every drop that it's worth, I'm like letting go of how big of a chance this is. I remember when I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking back to like one of the things I would repeat to myself very often in university. It was a J. Cole line from one of his first albums, which was like, I came out here to take advantage of the shit y'all take for granted. And I remember walking to class being like, looking around being like, bunch of people came here because it was just what they were supposed to do. But I always thought to myself, I'm here, but not because it was what I was supposed to do, but it was because I got this opportunity. I was going to try to squeeze that orange.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great points for sure. And now, TOBi, what for you? Like, again, saying there's that kid from Oakville or that kid from North York who's like so passionate about music, but also wants to get a degree and is conflicted and not really sure what to do. Like, what did you learn from Laurier that you apply to your career now?
I mean, first of all, shout out to Zack with that metaphor with the orange, man. I'm gonna use that.
That's a bar. That's a bar right there.
That's a bar, man.
I want publishing credit.
Waterloo's an interesting place, man, because the music legacy, whether people know it or not, Laurier has put out a lot of fire Canadian artists. You know, you're talking about JD Era, he went to Laurier. Johnny Rocks, he went to Laurier. Shad K, he went to Laurier. And, you know, like I said, every moment that I wasn't in class, I was recording, you know what I mean? Anytime that I was in my apartment, I was recording and making music. But the important piece for me was understanding that going to university or doing your post-secondary degree, wherever that is just that environment is a microcosm of the larger, you know, the larger world. You know what I mean? Like, if you get involved, if you're getting active, if you're becoming a leader in your school community, you are learning the skills that'll make you a leader when you leave that community. You know what I mean? It's all a transition towards your next step. And the good thing about Laurier is, till this day, you know, I met my manager, one of my closest friends, David Lee. I met him at Laurier. You know, my current tax accountant, I met him at Laurier. You know, Zack, I met at Laurier. He's been very instrumental to my career as an artist. Actually, he's definitely thrown me some alley-oops, which I appreciate. But yeah, it's just knowing what's in your surroundings and knowing the best way to connect with the people around you. We have so many gifted people around us who have different skills. It's just about tapping into that network. That to me is the most important thing that I learned in my 5 years, man. Just tapping into the skills of the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo those statements too. It's funny, all like the little instances that kind of compile together to, it's almost like these little Laurier instances give you this tool set that you don't know you have until you're out and graduated, right? Like our rap writing, like that was such a good exercise in creative writing, right? It's like, and it kind of like puts a vocab together, and there's all these little things. And I think that speaks to kind of the, I want to finish with 2 points. I want to talk quickly about, we already touched on it, but the connections that we make, right? Like you and I, TOBi, in rapping and battling and in the music space, right? And Zack, you and I knowing each other organically, Josh, us at, basketball runs and you dropping a 3 right in my face, seeing Sohail at the AC. I want to just quickly go through and talk about those organic networking communications that happened at Laurier. Let's kick it out, Josh.
Yeah, I would say I can't even like really pinpoint where I had those networking sessions, because it would just be in like the most random spots at times, like studying, like during exam season. That's when I was meeting a lot of people, to be honest. Like we would be studying on campus. People would grab food late night. People would like need notes. and whatnot. So we would almost have like that tribe community, like everyone's like looking out for each other, like who has the notes. It was almost like a scavenger hunt. And it wasn't even like the result of like getting the notes or doing well or doing bad on the exam, but it's like working together as almost like managing a team now. It's like, how do you work together to accomplish a goal? So like those little moments, and I would say, yeah, like going out, that's when I met a lot of people. Like Phil's Wednesday was always a vibe. Like I would always see these guys there. Like at that time, like Rev at that time, like just different events where they would play like music that we all enjoy. Yeah, but and I would say I resonated with people, I guess, with you guys on the panelists here, because like you guys worked extremely hard, but like never really never really took that social component lightly. Like you guys were still going out to ball runs, you guys were still going out, like you guys almost had like a switch where it was like, I'm gonna go hard in whatever I'm doing, but also have that component. So I would say like all those just random times where I don't know, it would be like outside the classroom. I would say most of those networking opportunities.
Yeah, like Josh, think about it for you and I and George, right? Like yeah. You guys knowing that I was emceeing Radio Laurier events and other events on campus, and then you're like, yo, like just last year, yo, Scotty, can you come? We're kicking off a Toronto sports performance. Is there any way you can come kind of MC and kick us off and like stuff like that? Then boom, there's your MC to do this panel, right? Like it all stemmed from us like, you know, screaming crew love at the top of our lungs at Phil's Wednesday because Take Care was like the best in first and second year. So that's interesting. So I'll throw it to you.
Pretty crazy. It's like, just as Josh said, like it was always outside the classroom, because like when you're in class, it's like, listen, there's some people at school who are there to learn. There's some people there at school just to be at school, right? So it's like, I would never actually like take those moments in the classroom to kind of network, because I was there to actually focus, right? But outside the classroom, it's like, whether it'll be at the AC or if I'm working at the Wilson Tour, right? Those are when I took those times to really like network and get to know people and learn different skill sets through other people, right? And one thing I was based on was I like being around goal-oriented people, because that's one thing I always am big on, is being goal-oriented. I remember when I was in school, I made a huge goal for myself in first year saying, I want to graduate Laurier with no debt. And one thing Josh can tell you is like, he would see when I go pay my tuition, I will go to the bank and I will withdraw cash, because I was proud as hell to be able to go and pay that. So when it came to like the networking and knowing people, is like being around people who shared my values and my ambitions. And I was very fortunate. All my roommates throughout school shared those same things, and they thought the same way. So they want to be around similar people. So building a huge network of people who share the same goals and ambitions and drive was big for me. And that's one thing that I kind of pivoted towards. And, you know, luckily I had all these guys on my side as well. Like look at Josh's story, look at Zack's story, like everyone's story, TOBi's story. We're all goal oriented and driven. And that's why we all like kind of like came together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it's just awesome to see where everyone has sprouted and where everyone is still like in the loop. Like it's so great to hear that, like Zack, when you and I were in Chicago recently, and you were telling me like updates on TOBi, and like and Josh, you're like in business now with George, and like everyone is just still so interconnected. And even when like maybe we don't see each other all that often, especially nowadays, and like Josh, you can call me at the drop of a hat and I'll come MC whatever you need. You know what I mean? It's like a really lasting relationship, which is great. Sorry, Zack, I want to throw it to you. The ultimate dot connector and connection maker. How did that Laurier shift out for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one of the most important things for the people that are in Laurier right now to take away is like, say yes to everything. Like, I think that's a big thing, you know, like if someone asks you to do something and you're like worried or you're afraid or you have thoughts about it, like say yes to it. Yeah, I guess yes, very yes theory, but because you never really know where it's going to take you. And more times than not, like you know, obviously within reason. But I think those are like one of the things that comes to mind. TOBi, I don't know if you remember this, but TOBi was going to like a slam poetry night, and I remember being like, yo, I do some poetry. Like, meanwhile, this is like 6th grade Zack does poetry. And TOBi was like, all right, come with me. And, you know, in a lot of those sessions you might, or like situations, you might say no, but I was like, no, I'm going to say yes. And went with TOBi to a slam poetry night, and both of us went up and did poetry in front of this room. And I think that brought our relationship a lot closer and made us closer friends. But like, it's those instances where you never really know where it's going to take you. And it might actually in the moment feel like it has no significance. But here we are, you know, 5 years later, looking back on that, being like, oh, it's actually impacted our friendship. And it was a really interesting moment for me. I've done that again and done slam poetry since. And it's like a thing that now I consider in my arsenal almost. So I think that would be the thing for networking. The other thing is, if you're in university right now, understand that you'll never have a common denominator. It's very hard to find the common denominator of walking around campus and knowing that everyone there goes to the same school as you, and being able to approach people and walk up to them and have that as a conversation starter. Once you go into the real world, it's just like you're adults in the real world. When you can go up to someone on the campus of Laurier, you have the fact that you're at school together to spark up a conversation about anything. Whether it's you want to go up to someone and you know, flirt and try to get their number in that regard, or if it's just someone that you're like, you think has a sweater that's a Raptor sweater, and you're like, yo, I love ball, like, yo, you want to come to ball runs with me? I think those are the moments. Like, you'll never regret the ones you did, but I can tell you now, looking back in hindsight, you might regret the ones that you pass up and you don't go say hi to that person, or you don't introduce yourself to that person. I'm sure there's a lot of people who never went up to Sohail to say hi, or didn't, you know, treat him with a lot of warmth at the AC, and then now we're like, damn, that dude at the Raptors, I wish I had a plug at the Raptors. So say hi to that person, because you never know where they're going to end up and who you might end up being friends with.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. That's a great point. And TOBi, you can talk to this too. Anywhere I go and I say, I'm from Laurier area, I went to Laurier, they go, do you know TOBi? Do you know TOBi? Do you know TOBi? Do you know TOBi goes there? Like, I want to talk about a campus celebrity, right? And then, but I think they came from genuine relationships, right? You weren't like at the 6 a.m. marketing networking event. You're just a cool dude who had his hands in a lot of things. Maybe talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, you know, I got to shout out my bro, TOBi Ojo, who people always mistake us all the time till this day. So half of those are probably him, but, you know, I will say though, man, like, the one thing that I learned is people never really leave your life. You know what I mean? Like, even if you have a brief interaction today, you never know when there's going to be a kind of karmic, you never know when they're going to return back into your life in the future. You know what I mean? So even Zack coming with me to the spoken word night, I was just like, bro, yes, come through. You know, I would love to hear what you got. And who knew that it would be, you know, a spark into a series of interactions and to building a relationship. So as far as connecting, man, it's just so important to be yourself, to just not be on your high horse, just keep it thorough, keep it genuine. And, you know, the people that you connect with, man, at some point, even if your interaction is this brief, it's a millisecond brief, you never know when you're going to link up again in life. And it's just important to just treat people the way you want them to treat you. And I think it's going to pay off in the long run, for sure.
Absolutely. That's great. And I think that's a great way where I want to wrap it up because we got a couple more things coming down, but I want to go through our panelists one more time and just quickly, in the interest of time, just give me like one tidbit of advice that you would give to a current student, or someone who's just graduated, or even someone who's thinking maybe about Laurier. What is your one piece of advice that Laurier kind of taught you? We'll just one kind of a statement. We'll start with Josh.
Something that I guess I apply right now is like resonance over reach. Everything that I do, like, I'd rather resonate than reach a million people. So it's like really zooming into, like, locking into someone I'm talking to and not thinking about what they could do for me. And just like I feel like that's what Laurier taught me, because like from my experiences with my roommates to these guys, like it just really taught me how to build like real authentic relationships without knowing people for that long. Like, and it kind of like growing up from where I grew up from, I always thought that it was like in like those neighborhoods, it would be like, you need to know someone for 50, 20 years. There was like almost hood politics where, but then like Laurier really taught me, it's like, yo, you can give and not expect. So that's what I would like say to everyone here, like resonate with everyone that you do, like that you encounter with. You don't have to like meet a million people. That one person that you connect with could literally change your life. So like similar like to Sohail, I've got to experience so many, I got an MLSC gig with big help to Sohail. So it's like the fact that me and Sohail like we're able to connect like that. I could ask him for anything, right? So I would just say like really, it's not about meeting like everyone on campus, but it's like if someone's in front of you, make sure to focus all your attention on them and not like wait for like almost play chess, you know, like really lock into that interaction without expecting anything.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great call. Sohail, what about you? A piece of advice for any current students or people who just graduated?
Honestly, it's quite simple. It might be kind of cliche. Like, just do what makes you happy. Like, don't do something that you're being forced by somebody else or that make other people happy, right? Like for me, people were forcing me into science, right? Didn't make me happy, but if I'm doing something that I love right now and it makes me happy to do, right? Look at Zack, same thing. He's doing what he loves. Josh, TOBi, same thing. They're doing what they love and what makes them happy, right? And look at how much more success you have when you're doing these things, right? If you're doing something where you're not happy and you're not excited to wake up every day and do that, then it's not the right thing for you, right? So go into the mindset where it's just like do what makes you happy. Whether that means being at a Laurier or being somewhere else, like the most important thing is you'll enjoy what you're doing in life and you'll succeed better in life if you're happy doing it. That's the best advice I can probably give any student right now.
Yeah, that's great for sure, especially today. Zack, what about you? Piece of advice.
I'll give it like an actionable piece of advice. This is what I would do. If I was back in first year university, I would calculate how much it costs to buy every textbook that I was supposed to buy for every class, and I would not buy that textbook. I would put that money in a piggy bank every single year, and then at the last day of my university, I would break that piggy bank open and take all that money and go on a really nice vacation in that little 2 to 3, 4 month window. But I think the reason I say that is don't not study and don't not try to read textbooks, but it will actually make you more resourceful in setting up study sessions with friends, borrowing a textbook from a friend, maybe giving $5, $10, $20 to be able to borrow it for a weekend. You'll spend less money, you'll become more resourceful, and at the end of university, you will break open that piggy bank and feel like you earned it, and it'll pay for a really nice trip. I would say, other than that, to build on what Sohail said, which I think is spot on, I think if you can answer the question for yourself, and this is what I would think was one of the most important things, what would you do if you had $500 million sitting in your bank account? Because I imagine if I asked TOBi what would he do if he had $500 million in his bank account, he'd probably just say maybe buy a new mic. But other than that, he'd be doing exactly what he's doing right now. Maybe buy a couple new shoes, maybe buy a house, maybe buy a car. But what he's doing is the exact same thing. And I think that's a really hard question to answer. A lot of people always say, like, I travel the world, and what would you, okay, you travel to every country in the world, you got back here, what are you going to do? If you can answer that question, then I think you'll know what is making you happy and what you would do if money was no object. So that's kind of my word.
Yeah, that's great. And last but certainly not least, TOBi, a piece of advice for any current students or people just graduated. What do you got?
I would just say to just go hard and believe in yourself. And there's this quote that fashion designer Melody Asani, she has on some of her clothes, where she says, if you knew that what you had was rare, would you waste it? So that really sticks with me, because I believe everybody on this planet has such a unique skill set that can't be replicated. It's like your DNA, or it's like your fingerprint. So hone in on yourself and go hard, because, people, I believe the majority of people do want to see you win. They do want to see champions. They do want to see people elevated because it's inspiring. And there are people around us that help us out, you know. Shout out to JS. Shout out to Peter Baxter at the AC. You know what I mean? Shout out to Bruce McKay. You know, I don't know if people are familiar with these names, but these are champions who are in my corner coming up. So anyways, that's my piece.
I love that. I love that. Yes, that's great. Okay, so that kind of concludes the panel part. I want to thank all you guys for tapping in. I think that was great. I learned a lot. I know you guys, and I learned a lot. I hope everyone listening on the call learned something as well. And again, the conversation doesn't stop. That's the whole point of a district exchange, is to continue the conversation and continue ask questions and find that dream life that you're looking for.